Unity versus Unreal Engine. Which one is the best game engine for you? Now, the short and sweet answer to this question would be that they're both completely capable of making the game that you want to make. But for a lot of you, you're just trying to get your foot in the door for game development. I've been programming games for about 5 years now, and I've experienced making games in both Unity and Unreal Engine, and even in game engines that I've programmed myself, so let me help you choose the right one. The biggest thing that you'll need to learn is programming. Now, you can make games with just cubes and spheres or square sprites, but in order to have any sort of gameplay, you'll need to learn how to program. Now, in my personal opinion, the engine that is best to start out with for programming is Unity. The first language I learned for game development was C#, but when I switched over to C++, it just felt like I was doing way more than I would in C#. That's the simplest way to put it. C# makes things feel way simpler, but Unreal Engine has something that's extremely beginner friendly, and that's blueprints. Now, at first, I didn't think blueprints were as powerful as regular programming, but then I programmed the neural network completely from scratch and realized they were the real deal. But the reason I'd say that C# is still the more beginner-friendly program is because I think it's really helpful understanding traditional programming first. The way I think about it is that you would have a much easier time going from C# or C++ to blueprints rather than vice versa. Now, if you were only going to choose one game engine for the rest of your life and didn't care about learning anything else, I would say use Unreal Engine for blueprints. There's a reason why visual programming is becoming popular, and it's because it makes programming so easy. I see a lot of people debating about whether they should be using visual programming or traditional programming, and of course, it's all about preference. But traditional programming is like walking up the stairs compared to using blueprints, which is the escalator. If there's an easier option that will save you time, you should use it. If you're completely uninterested in blueprints, then like I said earlier, I much prefer C# over C++, so Unity would be the way to go. Now that we've gotten past the programming part, which game engine is best for 2D game making? To me, this isn't even an argument, to be honest. Unity takes the cake by a mile. I've used Unreal for a while now, and I wouldn't even know where to start in order to make 2D games. But what's great about Unity is that you could easily just download a 2D game template from Unity Hub to start out with, whereas Unreal Engine doesn't even have an option for it anymore. Now, is it possible to make a 2D game in Unreal Engine? Of course. There's plenty of tutorials out there that will get you started, but if you're trying to make a 2D game for mobile or browser games, you'll have a much easier time in Unity than Unreal Engine. Mobile development in Unreal is not a fun time, and Unreal has also removed HTML5 support in their newer engines, so I highly recommend sticking to Unity for 2D games. 3D games makes this conversation a lot more difficult, because truthfully, both engines are equal in my eyes in this regard. You can drag and drop your 3D models in both engines and they'll do the exact same thing. You can program them to do the exact same things and apply materials to them the same way. But this takes us into a much more deeper topic, which is graphics. Graphically, you can achieve a lot of the same effects in both engines. There are so many resources for shader programming, but if I were to give a definitive answer on which engine is graphically better, I would say Unreal Engine. Now, this answer probably doesn't surprise most of you, since recently, there's been so much news coming out of Unreal Engine 5 to where it's very unlikely that you haven't heard anything about it. The tech coming out of it like Nanite and Lumen is absolutely brilliant, but if you're a beginner, none of that actually matters. Most of you, including myself, don't have a computer that could even handle the intense graphics that Unreal has. Now, of course, you can disable those features and use Unreal Engine with the tech that was already available in Unreal Engine 4, but at that point, is there really a massive difference between Unreal and Unity? Well, yes. Straight out of the box, Unreal Engine is just way better. Unreal's 3D templates are so useful for you to just observe and learn from. These templates are also a great start even if you understand programming to just build from and start prototyping right away. Now let's talk about some external resources. If you're just starting out, it's pretty likely that you're developing games solo, which means that you'll have a lot on your plate, which is doing all the programming, modeling, animations, sound design, and so forth. But what's great about both of these engines is that they have a marketplace where you can purchase things that make your life easier. But if you're like me, you don't want to have to pay for these resources, so which game engine offers you the most for less? This one goes right to Unreal Engine. Now, you really can't go wrong with either. Unity's asset store has a ton of free and cheap assets that you can use, but in Unreal Engine's marketplace, their free assets are just mind-blowing. I'm talking about legitimate AAA assets for you to use in your games. This includes Quixel Megascans. If you're using Unreal Engine, you get access to the best photorealistic assets in game development for free. Now, if you've been keeping score, we're tied up at 2 and 2, which makes sense because they're both really great engines, but I'm sure a lot of you can make a decision based off of one of the topics I've already talked about. But if you were to ask me to give you a definitive answer, well, I'll have to give you 2. If you're just starting out and are trying to learn game development and just make your very first game, based on everything I've talked about, the best answer is Unity. Thinking back to when I first started, Unity was just so simple, and it's basically what encouraged me to keep pursuing game development. But when I first started learning Unreal Engine, it just took me a lot longer to get familiar with everything and really feel comfortable with the engine. But here's my second answer. If you have experience with game development and are ready to make higher quality games and are well equipped to utilize the technology, you should absolutely use Unreal Engine. This was basically the progression I made. I started out using Unity, I learned a lot and it helped me advance myself as a programmer, but once I made the switch to Unreal Engine, I just felt like that I could make a better product with it. But to this day, I still use Unity and Unreal Engine interchangeably. I really hope this video helped you guys. I'm sure many will have different opinions, but I feel like that's a good thing. The fact that we can go back and forth about both engines means they're both good enough to even be discussed in that manner. There's been a ton of great games that have been released using both of these engines, and someday, you might have a game released on one of them, and I look forward to seeing it. As always, please be sure to like the video and subscribe. I've really enjoyed making these videos and look forward to making more. I hope you all have or had a wonderful day. Peace.